I want my work to be authentic. I want it to be raw. I'm not concerned with what a certain trend is or if I have no idea. It has to be authentic to me. My name is Gitte Backhausen. I'm currently exhibiting my work at Few and Far as part of their Artist in Residence program. I love to paint because it takes me, I sometimes say it takes me out of my mind. There's also an element of problem solving that keeps intriguing me and that keeps me coming back to painting. So I prefer to work with acrylic on canvas when I'm painting. It really suits the way I work because I work fast and in many layers, so it allows it to dry and, that I can keep working in many layers rather than having to wait for hours or days. And it just suits my way of working. So the process is quite chaotic, actually. I usually start on the floor with a lot of canvases, and in the first instance, it's just about getting paint down. It's very free, it's very messy, it's very chaotic. And from there, things start to build layer after layer. So rather than being kind of like a formula and they'll focus on one painting at a time, I look at it as a body of work, and that energy kind of comes through. So there's a cohesiveness in that body of work that I'm working on. Yeah, and especially in the beginning of the process, the freedom and to simply just go with what's happening and let the paintbrushes do the talking, so to speak, is very important to me. It keeps the work alive, and that's what I wanted to do. So in order to understand where my abstract landscape originate from is probably to understand that I've always been an abstract painter. I can draw realistically and paint realistically, but I've always been more interested in approaching the unknown through the abstract. What happened then when we moved to the South Coast was that slowly my abstract works became more and more landscape, and it wasn't a deliberate decision. It just happened. I'm obviously influenced by my surroundings. And so these different bodies of works, my most recent ones, are all inspired and influenced by where I live on the South Coast. The Gentle Wilderness series is a series that is a lot lighter in my palette. It's always fun to see how things develop and where they develop from and what they develop into. That body of work became a lot more about it's almost like a reference to the ephemeral and the wind and things that change all the time, but also the gentler tones of the wilderness that we can find ourselves in, both in nature and in life. The body of work that's called Between Earth and Sky is influenced by me reading a book that's called The Hidden Life of Trees. I was just really curious about the world that we can't see. I call my works subconscious abstract landscapes because they are landscape that comes from within. I never know what's going to happen. They're obviously also influenced by the outside, the landscapes that are around me. But I read this book, and it was really interesting to learn about all these amazing processes that happen between earth and sky and below the surface as well. So it was a journey into discovering what happens in the life of trees and in nature, and how the different species either work together or fight each other, or, like I always have a reference to, a background in applied social science. I'm always interested in psychology, and for me, the reference to nature is as much a reference or a link to human behavior and psychology for me. So I see a connection between the two. So the series called Subconscious Landscapes is a series where I really wanted to honor that space of letting the subconscious free to speak. So I do that in all my abstract landscapes, but the more that I kind of get to learn my own processes, I've done it for over 20 years, and developed in my practice for that long. But like with anything, there's always more to discover. That's just part of being human. And I really wanted that series to honor that space where it's not a thinking process, it's not it's not a formula, it's not a plan. I really wanted to honor the freedom to simply let the process happen and develop along the way. I do think that we all have a subconscious voice. Mine comes out through paint often, and I allow that to happen. And that's one of the things that keep me painting, because I never know quite what's going to happen in these landscapes. And that's exciting. Life is my inspiration, and that might sound a little bit corny, but I'm a deep thinker, and I've always reflected on life and human behavior, my own and everybody else's. It's kind of like a combination between the visual of nature and then a connection to the psychological landscape. In terms of artists, I'm especially drawn to artists that have a very raw visual language. One of my favorites of all time is Cy Twombly, but I'm also very much a fan of our own Australian Elizabeth Cummings, which probably doesn't surprise people when they see my work. And it's not like I look at their work and I want to do the same. I think there's a similar visual language that I connect with. There's a similarity in the desire to express freely. So the raw, organic, spontaneous brush strokes and lines is something that always really uplifts me. My favorites are the ones that end up in the collection that I exhibit. And then every now and then I keep a piece. Yeah, I don't put anything out into the world that I wouldn't myself live with. The ones you see are my favorites. Well, Australia to me feels like home. The raw and beautiful nature, the light, the intricate details of all these trees and plants and elements of nature that I keep discovering that are different to where I grew up in Denmark. So it just feels mesmerizing to me, and I'll never get bored walking around, looking at Australia from all points of view. No, God, no. I've been as confused as anybody. It's just that the world might not see that. Earlier in my career, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to paint? What do people like? What colors should I choose? And so on. I don't do that anymore, thankfully, and what a relief. I'm a lot more, and I guess that's about growing older as well. I want my work to be authentic. I want it to be raw. I wanted it to be real. I'm not concerned with what a certain trend is, or if I have no idea. It has to be authentic to me. I know from experience, if I don't honor that, it's not going to be a good result. It's not going to be a good result visually, painting-wise, art-wise. But it's also not going to be a good result for me and my well-being if I don't, listen to what I'm about and what my work wants to do. An easy yes from me when I was approached by Few and Far. Tara has done an amazing job setting up these interior havens. I usually exhibit in galleries, but I thought this is a great opportunity to reach a broader audience, and the quality of the interiors at Few and Far are top-notch. I think it's very well suited to my work. It's fantastic that Few and Far is focusing on original artwork and that my work can be seen in a setting of homes, because that's where most of the works end up, is in people's homes. So it gives a really beautiful feeling, and yeah, Few and Far are doing an amazing job. You can view and purchase my work through Few and Far, in-store or online. Follow for more updates and content about original art.